In my view, books of this age and this quality are stunning value.
This is a very enviable object, and with envy, of course, comes value.
And you say you bought it at a boot sale?
Yeah.
Wow.
In the year 1476, Geoffrey Chaucer, who was working in Bruges at the time, moved his printing press to London, to Westminster, to within the precincts of Westminster Abbey. And there he set up a press and he printed the first book printed in England with movable type. And that book happened to be the most important piece of Middle English literature ever written. And it was, of course, the Canterbury Tales. Now, this is not the first edition. This is not the 1476 edition. In fact, if we look at the title page, the works of Geoffrey Chaucer, newly printed with divers editions, and this wonderful armorial title page, we see, virtue flourisheth in Chaucer still, though death of him hath wrought his will. And the date here, 1560. So this makes it, in fact, a fifth edition of the works of Chaucer. And if we turn to the Knight's Tale, which is number 1, we have the most gorgeous woodcut illustration there. And we have this wonderful black letter, which typifies the printing of this period. And also wonderful paper, too. I don't think they made better paper. And looking through this particular copy, there are very few stains, there's very few finger marks. It's the crispest, cleanest copy that one could possibly wish for. And if I turn to the colophon right at the end here, we can see who it was printed for and the date. Here we are. Imprinted at London by John Kingston for John White, dwelling at Poole's Churchyard, anno 1561. So they started in 1560 and finished it, which is at the end, in 1561. Now the binding, again, is remarkable. Now it's lacking its clasps here, which is understandable because these often did wear off. But there is the remains here of a very fine blind stamped calf binding. Now this style of blind stamped calf came from the continent and was used not so often over here in our book decoration. The spine has, if we look at it, has been taken off and a new spine put on with the old spine laid down on top of that. But indeed the work was done such a long time ago that it's actually splitting here. But it's a sumptuous copy. It's a prince of copies. It's very exciting. It's lovely. Now you have to tell me where your side of things come in. Where did it come from?
Well, it came from a friend of mine, and his aunt died about 6 months ago, and at the age of about 80. And John inherited this from her. That's about, unfortunately, about all I know about it.
So you brought it in today for him?
He was going to come today, yes, but he couldn't make it, so he asked me if I would come down.
Well, it's absolutely wonderful. Now, if this was the first edition of the Canterbury Tales, we'd be talking somewhere in the region of £850,000. But don't get excited, please. I only did that to wind you up slightly.
Yes, Don't mind that I'm getting around.
This is the fifth edition of the complete works of Chaucer. And in my view, books of this age and this quality are stunning value. And I estimate this not to be £850,000, but about 8,500. Yes. It's a wonderful book. And thank you so much for bringing it in.
Well, thank you very much for explaining to us. It's superb. Thank you very much.
So you're telling me you got all these from car boot sales?
Except for that one.
Oh, amazing. Why do you like Ian Fleming?
Well, I don't know. The artwork on the books, it was when I started collecting the paperbacks, I just found the artwork interesting. And then after that, I started to look at the writing of Ian Fleming. When I bought this book here, I think it was about 3 years ago. And when I was reading it, I found that this guy here, James Bond, I'm not sure whether that was the inspiration for the James Bond character. And that is what I wanted to know.
That's what you want to know? Yeah. Well, James Bond was an American ornithologist.
Right.
And he'd written the field guide to the birds of the West Indies. Ian Fleming liked to go to the West Indies, so there was a link, and Ian Fleming had read James Bond's book. In a way, what he did was he just grabbed his name and he used it. After that, they got to know each other on a personal basis, and so this is a collector's item in its own right because of the connection.
I didn't realise that.
So it's very amusing. The unusual thing about the whole collection is that most of them are in just such beautiful condition.
Picking up a car boot sales, they tend to put them in cardboard boxes on damp ground, and the damp comes through. Like there's one or two. I think there's that one there.
What, Diamonds Are Forever?
Yeah, the edge went because it was in a damp box.
Yes. You can see there's a bit of damage, and that, in terms of the first edition, that makes a crucial amount of difference.
Right, okay.
And this would have been worth a few £100s, and
Right.
it's probably reduced its value to more like 2 or 3 with the damage on this on the edges here. Dr. No's another very good one, which is now worth about £300 or £400. Altogether, on this table, excluding Casino Royale, we've probably got in excess of £2,000 worth.
Good God.
Do you know this is the first book he ever wrote?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's, from a collector's point of view, in Casino Royale, it has a tremendous premium. This is the book that, in a way, launched his career.
Right.
And it was published in 1953. If I told you it was worth a few £100s, would you be surprised?
Don't know.
What about if I told you it was worth a few £1,000?
Thousands.
Yes.
Yes, I would be a little bit shocked, actually.
You would be a little bit shocked, wouldn't you?
I would, yeah.
And if I said to you that recently it's been fetching between £5,000 and £7,000 at auction,
Never.
and you say you bought it at a boot sale?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember how much you paid for it?
I can, actually. Most of the books cost between 50 pence and £1.
Well, there's a return for you.
I can't believe how bright and colourful a funeral procession is. Here is the carriage of Her Majesty the Queen and 2 of Her Majesty's suite. And we go on. This is so colourful. The British Army, the Highlanders, looking as bright as they possibly could. You must have kept this extremely well out of the way. And look at all this colour. It's just absolutely magnificent for a funeral service. And here, Chief Mourner, the Duke of Wellington. Well, this, of course, is the Duke of Wellington's funeral. And here is the man himself. And look at that for colour. That is the most incredible plate, isn't it?
It's fun.
You know all this is cast iron. This is all cast iron. When I was a boy, you could actually go and see this in St Paul's Cathedral, where he was buried. And so the legend goes that this was all so heavy that they couldn't get it up Ludgate Hill. He was 2 hours late for his own funeral, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing to be.
Why not?
And so it goes on. It really is absolutely magnificent. So tell me about it.
Well, I must get the right number of greats. I think it's 2 greats. Great-great-grandfather, through a friend, had a ticket somewhere on Ludgate Hill in order to see this procession. And I think I'm right in saying this was only produced about a year afterwards. It probably took quite a long time to produce it.
Absolutely.
And he bought it afterwards. I think the receipt is
Well, you
actually
see,
in the front.
you're absolutely right. I find this absolutely fascinating because I've never seen a receipt from Ackermann's before. One panorama, Duke's funeral, not Duke's of Wellington's funeral, 31 and 6.
Expensive.
I mean, that's incredible. And this note here, my father, James Passmore, saw this procession from a window in Ludgate Hill and paid 20 guineas for their seats.
That must have been a lot of money in 1852.
But I mean, surely you couldn't buy a house in 1852 for that sort of money. I just think it's quite incredible. It does need some repair. Inevitably, as time has gone on, it has fallen apart in a few of the folds. But it is an absolutely wonderful thing, and of course stretching out to 10 whole feet. Well, I suspect that even in the condition it's in now, it's probably about £1,500 to £2,000. But it is magnificent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, if I was going to use the word exquisite about anything, I think I'd use it for this. It's very small, concentrated, and extremely beautiful. Tell me about it.
It came from my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who was raised in Ireland. And it came to me because my mother, when she died about 8-9 years ago, there were a whole lot of artifacts from my grandmother which she wanted to divide up between myself, my sister and my 2 cousins. And she said, you can draw lots for who goes first, and all the artifacts can be laid out on the dining room table, and then you pick them in order. And I took an instant shine to that, and I said, well, I hope I'm going to get it. I was actually the one that got the 4th straw. And so I had to wait while my three others chose. And luckily they were all far more practical than I was. And they all took things like toast racks or knives and forks. And so when my turn came, I got that.
No, that must have been an absolutely heart-stopping moment, actually, when you think that the roulette wheel's not spinning in your direction. But it absolutely did, didn't it?
Yes,
and my goodness, what a fantastic condition, too. What do you know about its contents?
Well, it's got this little paper almanac inside, isn't it?
Yes, full of all kinds of interesting facts, and it's a very sweet engraving of a view of London at this time. And there are the phases of the sun and the moon, aren't there?
Yes,
and
yes.
There are lists of the Lord Mayor of London and lists of
Kings
the
and queens.
Kings and queens, and the senior dignitaries of Queen Victoria's court. Her absolute favourite, Lord Melbourne, is mentioned top of the list. Waits for stamps. Very conveniently, it's dated 1840, and I'm sure the goldsmith's work is exactly from that period. It's very interesting to me, actually, because had we not that external evidence, I might just have been, for a while, thinking along the lines that this could be a piece of 18th century English goldsmith's work. Right. It's very much in the manner of a goldsmith called Strahan, working in London in the second half of the 18th century. And I think in a strange way, this is an 18th century revival. 1840 is certainly in the reign of Queen Victoria. In fact, it was the year that she was married. And so this is an early Victorian piece of London goldsmith's work. And why does it exist? It's hopelessly impractical, isn't it? Bound in beautiful silk here. And its function is really very much secondary to the fact that it's a truly beautiful object. For these sort of hopelessly useless and beautiful things, there is a terminology. We call them objects of virtue, which really has its etymological roots in the fact that they're toys. These are toys for grown-ups. Yeah. And they come from an age, really, when there's no television, no radio. In the evenings, amusements were taken in odd ways, and one would have a collector's cabinet with goldsmith's work and get these beautiful things out in candlelight and look at them and view them with amazement. Well, a beautiful thing, probably to give a beautiful girl in 1840. We don't know exactly who that is, but boy, we share in that life, don't we,
Indeed.
by seeing it?
Yes. It'll probably be the grandmother of my grandmother. That would fit datal-wise, I would think.
Well, marvellous, and it's a very rare sight, and I think this is a very enviable object, and with envy, of course, comes value. I mean, if this were, and it isn't going to happen, but if it turned up for sale, it would excite an enormous amount of interest. I mean, I'd want it really badly, and I would bid, my goodness, what would I bid? I'd bid £5,000, £6,000.
Good gracious.
And I might even go one more at 7. I think it's a completely marvellous thing, and thank you for bringing it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Clive, I think these are among the most astonishing books I've ever seen. Napoleon Bonaparte goes to Egypt with his army at the end of the 18th century. He is completely astonished by what he sees. He has with him 200 architects, mathematicians, artists, and so on, and he says to them, I want you to make a complete record of everything you see.
It is absolutely remarkable, and the more remarkable thing is, in fact, the book production itself. I mean, look at these massive plates. They are quite incredible. The detail, this is a copper plate, an enormous copper plate, and the detail they've managed to bring out is quite incredible.
And you know, apparently Napoleon said to his soldiers, you stand on top of those pyramids and you look down upon 40 centuries.
It's remarkable. And look at this one here. This is amazing. The artist has had the cheek to put himself in there under the
chap under the tent.
Under the tent, yes. I mean, and to emphasise this is one of the biggest plates in the whole work.
So the printing process then was in itself phenomenal.
Oh, it was. I mean, nothing like it had been attempted before. The expedition to Egypt and this particular book production. It was the birth of Egyptian taste. The birth of Egyptology, as we know it now.
So the books themselves were tremendously important.
Absolutely. And if this is one of the most phenomenal book productions of all time, I have to say that this is one of the most extraordinary paperback productions of all time. Here we have 10 volumes, over 1,000 plates, condensed into this.
One volume.
Yours for £15.
On the shopping list immediately. Now, I know how fond you are of Bibles. And what are these here?
This is First and Schurfer, 1472, printed, and you can see it's been illuminated fabulously, rather like an illuminated manuscript. It really is the most extraordinary.
And would have taken hours, weeks, months for some monk to
Absolutely.
achieve,
You
locked
see,
away in a monastery.
They used to illuminate all these. These are
Yes.
all done by hand.
Yes,
The rest
yes.
is all done actually in print.
That's beautiful.
And this is Henry VIII in about 1451. one.
What, his own Bible?
No, this is the one that he actually commissioned, and here he is, handing it out to the clergy and to the lords, going down through society here on either side. And those who knew their Latin say, Vivat Rex, and the young children, who obviously haven't been to school yet, say, God save the King.
And what's this?
Oh, this is wonderful. This is an Indian Bible. This was the Indian language translated here.
When you say Indian, I mean we're talking North American Indian?
North American Indian here, a Biblum God. Don't you love it? By John Eliot, printed in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1685. And it is Sam Sewell's Bible. Well, he came across from America a few years later, about 5 or 6 years later, and he came to Winchester College, and he was so impressed by what he saw, he gave them this Bible.
And he's reputed to be, I gather, Winchester's first American tourist.
He was the first American tourist.